Hello and welcome to the Sabaw podcast episode number 2 probably or number 1
Okay.
as we may.
Right. We're here with Mr. James Deakin, and we're going to be talking about what it's like getting around the metro. Think this has been a very big topic in recent months. Thank you for agreeing to sit with us.
Happy to be here.
Okay. So, well, before we get started with the formal stuff, just because I just came out of an hour-long commute from Muntinlupa, which isn't really that far.
Yeah.
So, just to put things in perspective, what's it like, using the roads or even the commuting facilities of other countries? Where do we stack
Other
up?
countries? Oh, we're pretty low down there. I don't think we're the worst, but we're pretty low. And we have the potential to be the worst if we don't actually do something about it. What frustrates me, and I think what frustrates a lot of people, is that it's not like we're trying to find a cure for a rare disease. It's a very common one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing stopping us from getting best practices from other countries. This is where I get very emotional about it or angry, because it's like, just follow. Just it's not rocket science. Okay, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but there's a tried and proven method here. And I think that we don't all, for one, we have not put the priority on it, the kind of priority it deserves. And when I say that, I say it because I think that if we treated it as serious as they do the war on drugs, then we would get somewhere. I don't talk about topics that are really outside of my transport sector, etc. I stay in my lane. So I won't get into like war on drugs, killings, etc. Like
Fair enough.
I'm just borrowing from that kind of laser focus that the president has on it and this administration. If you adopted that and you did a war on traffic or a war on discipline, I think in 3 to 6 months we would have already not solved everything, but we would have gone a long way to it, because I really do believe that discipline is probably accounts for about 50%, 40 or 50%. And I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm talking to a lot of transport experts, both here and abroad, and they say the same thing.
Right.
Even our own traffic czars and people who have been put in that position, from MMDA to transport secretaries, etc., they recognize that this is a big problem, but they don't know how to implement it. Or they know how to implement it, but there's just too many political hurdles and processes involved in it. And so this is where I suggested once, and people thought I was crazy. This is way before Duterte even considered running. Mm-hmm. So the terms were not being thrown around at all. And I said, declare a state of emergency on our roads for traffic, if there's such a thing. And my limited understanding of the law, etc., but was basically, if we had any other pandemic, if you think about any other pandemic, whether it was an outbreak of a virus or something like that was threatening the Filipino people and its republic, and this was costing the Filipino people anywhere from 2 billion to 3 billion a day, you don't think that we would throw everything we had at it? We wouldn't put our equivalent of the National Guard or Marines, Navy. We would probably borrow people from America or any other ally to just get there until this is solved.
Well, ask for help.
We would, right?
Exactly.
If we were faced with anything that was threatening the Filipino people and the Republic and costing us 2 to 3 billion a day, well, traffic is an enemy and it's costing us 2 to 3 billion pesos a day. Why are we not treating it the same way? Why are we not out there, front lines with, until this is solved, we are not moving. This is what I mean by not getting the priority that it deserves.
Are you saying, James, that parallel to that, crisis planning and the same kind of treatment to a crisis?
Yes, definitely. It's exactly what I'm saying. I think that we gloss over it too much. I think every time I bring it up and I write to the president and I have open letters to the president, and I see comments, not just from netizens, but from public officials going, as if our president hasn't got enough to worry about and you want to bother him with this.
Why is it low on the priority?
Yes, exactly. I'm stunned by that response. I'm like, this is not high priority for you?
Yeah.
This is not... the only reason it's not high priority is because you're not making it a high priority. But this affects everybody. Once again, I'm not going to touch on the war on drugs or anything like that, but if you look at how many people drugs has affected versus the amount of people that traffic affects, there's no comparison.
Absolutely.
So
so many billion.
I'm not discounting it, but just in case. I know there's some very passionate people out there. I'm just saying that yes, okay, whatever that's a separate topic. But there's no one topic that affects as many people as traffic does, because whether you're rich, poor, gay, straight, tall, thin, fat, it doesn't matter. You are a road user.
Yes, and that's
You
something
may
that's
not even
interesting.
drive, you're a road user.
You know, Manila isn't even all that big when you think about
Yeah.
it. And people look at me like I'm crazy if I mention like Tagaytay is only 44 kilometers away. They're like, it feels like so much farther.
Oh, absolutely. That's a weekend
It
trip.
should be a reachable destination.
Absolutely.
44 is like your average commute in
the
any
States.
other country.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go in the States, if you live 44 kilometers from your work, it's a
It's
little bit
a
far.
leisurely drive.
Yeah, well, it's an hour's drive.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, actually, it's
But
a
you're
little
driving,
less.
you're not stuck.
No, yeah, I mean, if it depends what city you're in, but yeah, 44 kilometers would probably be a 45-minute to an hour's drive in a pretty big city. Less if you are doing autobahns and stuff like that.
Having come out of the Senate committee hearing, was that for you an experience that made you hopeful, or made you reassess our system? That maybe there's something here that we can work on in terms of opening politicians' minds.
It's a very good question, because hopeful, I did come out of there hopeful because I saw at least 3 or 4
Senators.
bright, yeah, who got it, who said, okay, yeah. One, they invited me, so that's already a big jump, because before we weren't included in this conversation, and that was another thing that stunned me. All of these technical working groups are formed, and none of them are actually representing the voice of the people, of the average motorist, of the average. And then you have transport sectors that come in and have their own representatives. And not for anything else, but a lot of times, they're transport advocates and stuff that do more damage than good, because they are claiming to represent a certain
They have
sector.
their own agenda.
They have their own agenda, and they're representing a minority, but then they end up trying to dictate or
Take advantage
hijack the
of it.
conversation, yeah, based on their own agendas and stuff. And you get areas, let's say if you talk about jeepney drivers and stuff like that, I find it very counterproductive when you fight for their rights to remain the same. Like you're basically out there picketing and striking, going no to modernization, no to fare increase,
Right.
no to this, no to
Right.
that, no to this, no to anything. That tells me only one thing. You are just, it might sound like you're protecting them, but it's only guaranteeing their poverty, because you're ensuring that things remain the same.
The status quo.
Are you happy with where you are today?
Absolutely
No.
not.
So what makes you think it'll be different if we don't change anything? But they're just the fear of change, the fear of modernization, the fear of price hikes, the fear of this. And they're going, no, we want to stay here because this is our comfort zone. Now, a transport leader should get out there and be the one motivating and dragging these people up and going, don't worry, I know you're scared, but it's better over here. No, trust me, here, hold my hand, I'll take you up. And pull them out.
Take a chance.
Take a chance. Don't say, oh, like The Cruise. Have you ever watched the movie The Cruise?
Yes.
Oh, don't go out there. You're going to get killed there. You're going to get
Right.
killed. Let's protect ourselves here. And let's stay with our no price hikes on this, no price hikes on that. And then keep, no, you know what? This is why we don't move forward. We need people to take us forward and lead us forward. There are better things if we all work together for it.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
How was the experience mismo nung being in the Senate, sir? Was it as dragging sometimes as we see it on TV?
Well, if you saw the whole
Bureaucracy.
thing, I don't know what you saw, but I mean, most people that I speak to saw that 11-minute clip that went out.
Right.
But
Speech,
those are two
yeah.
speeches put together, so 6 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that. It does drag out. If you're there the whole time, yeah, those 11 minutes were, I was there for 3 hours or something like that, if I remember correctly. So yes, it's interesting, but it does drag out, and you do hear the same things going over and over again. I'm not saying it to criticize, because I guess this is the process of how things are done, and they need to hear these things. Sometimes we take for granted, I've heard it 100 times before, but maybe the people like the senators there haven't, and they need to hear this again. So okay, I'm okay with the redundancy, but it does drag on a little bit, but it's okay. It's not meant to be a telenovela.
You were prepared for that.
I was prepared because this is a topic close to my heart. So I'm speaking straight from the heart.
Right.
I did have some kind of something prepared, but I
How
got
did you write down that speech beforehand?
no. Well, I wrote down a speech
speech.
of some sort because I've never been called to the Senate before. So I asked them, "What are you expecting of me?"
Yes.
And they replied by saying, "Well, you'd probably be given about 10 to 15 minutes of a privileged speech, for lack of a better term. I know that only senators get the privileged speech, but for lack of a better term, you'll be given that."
Right.
So in my head, I had written out this thing but it didn't happen that way. Senator Villanueva, he had to go early, so he said, wait, before I go, I want to hear first from James.
Okay.
And he asked me a direct question.
Right.
So my script was out the window. But it's a good thing that the topic is close to my heart, so I can talk about transport issues, especially this issue. I can talk under wet cement. It doesn't
Absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me, but that's why it kind of came out like that without any, teleprompters or anything like that, because you're just speaking straight from the heart.
Right. I've heard it said by some that the infrastructures that we have in place and the organizations that are dedicated to keeping things the way they are, to protecting the workers' rights, these can be compared to the labor unions and the drivers' unions in the United States. I mean, think about it. It's at one point the world's richest country, but their trucking, their hauling, their trains, everything is still the same way it was 50 years ago, because there are organizations who it's in their best interest to keep things the way they are. I mean, they could have had bullet trains years ago if they wanted, but that takes away money from truckers and all these.
Yeah.
So what's your take on these groups who are just protecting the status quo that Carl said?
And what, may message ka ba sa kanila?
Stop it.
Yeah.
If you are one of those who are oppressing people for your own personal gain, stop it. It's really, come on, man. That's like so one century ago type of thing. We live in a very informed era right now. If you want to be on the wrong side of history, that's your choice. But people are going to catch you. And I'm looking right there because I want you to know that it's not like it was 20, 30, 40, not even 20. 50 years ago, the propaganda was, we have propaganda now, but obviously we have access to information now. So when you say stuff like, cannabis is going to make you rape people, and then after a while people are like, di pala. What do you look like then? Ask yourself that. What do you look like when the proper information comes up and surfaces to the top? Because while we have a lot of fake news, while we have a lot of propaganda still, the fact that we have this, we've democratized information.
And access to
access to it. Smart people will go out and they will start researching, and then they will start basically finding out the truth. And propaganda can only go so far. I love how Grace Pope put it in the Senate when she said, if you don't have an idea that sticks, or you don't have anything behind your propaganda, it's not going to survive. And she's absolutely right. Because the LTFRB, not the LTFRB, there was another lady from the DOTR who was standing up for the LTFRB saying that, they're paid trolls from Uber and Grab. And she said, well, there's nothing stopping you from theoretically getting your own PR agency and doing that. But if I've learned anything, it's that if you don't have anything behind it, it won't stick.
Right.
There's something behind this, right?
Allegations.
Exactly. So if you want to be a group that oppresses people, you'll only get so far before people go, wait, hang on a second. There's a lot of people. There's people on the other side of this ride-sharing thing accusing me of being God.
Right.
I've heard so many things about, it's interesting. If somebody can't wrap their head around the fact that somebody would just do this for the greater good, it speaks more about that other person's character than anything else.
Absolutely.
If you won't move simply because there's nothing, you haven't monetized it, maybe you shouldn't be in journalism. Actually, no, you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be in journalism. You shouldn't be even really opening your mouth in public if it takes you to be paid to do that.
Exactly.
There are some times where you just have to stand up for what you believe in life, and this is one of those things I believe in 100%. So yeah.
Speaking of, now that the debacle and Uber's paid, suspension stop, what can we gain from this incident? Any lessons that
Yeah, a lot of lessons.
particularly stand out?
I'm not I'm not that confident that it's over yet.
Oh.
So,
Can we expect worse?
well, because the worst thing for me that can happen here is not that they're closed down. That's the second worst thing that can happen. The worst thing for me that can happen is that they are driven out of business. Because that is a long, slow, painful death. And then on top of that, it will appear as if it's Uber and Grab's fault. When
So
it's
we're
not.
talking about taxis and
We're
other
talking about
services.
over-regulating them to the point where you just snuff them out.
It's not worth it
It's not-
anymore
No,
to
it's
continue.
not. So like it's happening now already. I'm starting to see this morale issue, coming out, especially during the suspension. When the suspension happened, many of the drivers were working double time and overtime to try and make up the slack. And so they were tired, they were hungry, they were trying to do their bit. And then on top of that, the public were like saying, God, it's so awful, whatever, because it's not worth their while after a while.
Right, right.
I mean, you gotta be reasonable and realistic about these things. We had a nice system working before because it worked on supply and demand, it worked on an
Absolutely.
algorithm that understood this.
Yes.
And
Feedback system.
feedback system, so it's all organic. And this is something that has been tried and proven in 190
Other
plus
countries,
countries, I think it is.
The LTFRB knows better.
Exactly. So they came in and they tampered with something that was perfectly working. And, I don't want to take steps backwards by hitting the LTFRB. It's frustrating when it's not broken and you try to fix it. So this is what happened. Now we are in a stage where they are trying to put regulations in place because they've been given a deadline by the Senate to fix this before new legislation comes in. So pending new legislation, which will take a while, LTFRB have been tasked with come up with specific regulations for TNCs and TNBS so that so it ensures its survival. And what I'm seeing right now is there's a few points that are being debated. Driver caps, surge caps, and there's this thing about the inward facing camera. These are about the top three right now that need attention. I did a survey just yesterday and interesting results. The driver caps, I think it was, I can even check the figures here, but it's something like, it's quite overwhelming. It's 80-something% support no driver caps.
No driver.
Same goes for surge caps. Roughly about the same, it's about 75 to 80% of passengers say don't put a surge cap.
Of course.
The reason for this is because
It has to rely on supply and demand.
yes, and who better to dictate that supply and demand than the people who are actually in this core business.
Yes.
There's no app or any technology that can better discern this than what they have developed. It's cost billions of pesos to develop this app.
Just to get that data.
So there's also no incentive for a company like Uber or Grab or anyone for that matter,
Put a cap
McDonald's
on
or
it.
Jollibee or
Yep.
Mercury Drive, to oversupply. You don't.
It's like telling Jollibee you can only sell this many hamburgers in a day.
There you go. How long is a piece of string? I mean,
Right.
as long as you need it. To
Pero
be, right?
sa kanila, as long as people are still buying those burgers, they'll open another
open
Jollibee
another
200
Exactly.
feet away.
Exactly, but they have market research for that. And U.S. advertising agencies understand this more than anybody. And you don't need a set of regulations to tell you where you can and cannot open, because you just let the free market dictate, and then you fight it out there.
But, somebody needs to get a cut. Sabaw.
Yes.
Well,
Allegedly.
Allegedly,
Yeah.
right. 190 million to the government.
I'm not sure where that's supposed to go to the National Treasury, but it's more
Budgets.
so on the survival of ride sharing that I'm concerned about, because you not just solve this problem, but you also really encourage people to lift their game when you do this. When you create this, don't punish success.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you do this and you actually reward success, you will find everybody coming out there and just trying to find a better way in everything. Because when you're going back to, I think one of your original questions about traffic and how, when people look at it, all my experience interviewing people, government officials, even netizens, road users, etc., majority of people, they're looking for this one big fix, And
No.
when they come up to me and they say, "Oh, you should be traffic czar. You should run." Expecting me to come in and go, "Here's my magic
Here's my
wand."
magic wand,
Boom!
yeah.
Nobody thought of that. It's like the equivalent of those ads that you see on the internet, this pill makes you lose 20 pounds in 1 week.
Miracle pill.
Doctors want it banned.
Right.
No,
That's
right.
No such animal.
No, it's no such animal. And you know what? We're preying on that primal need or this human emotion of course everyone wants a quicker way out of it. Of course everyone wants to believe that you can lose that weight in one pill, no exercise, doctors want it banned. So the same thing for traffic. But in reality, there's really only a tried and proven way that's worked for centuries. It's more people in less vehicles. Okay, that's as simple as you can put it. So
Right.
if that vehicle is a train, obviously that's the most efficient. But trains only have a certain area that they can operate on, right? So you have secondary roads, you have the last mile, and you have all these things. So you cannot just say the train is the solution, just like you can't say the bus is the solution, or the private car, the taxi, or the tricycle. No, it's a combination. It's a menu of these options that you put together. Now, when you look at it, just like in any business, if you study this and you go, okay, train, bus, car, tricycle, jeepney, etc., how do I make this more efficient?
Right.
Now, ride sharing will make this approximately, the private car sector will make that approximately, theoretically, 50 or 60 or 70% more efficient because we're now sharing the same cars that are actually on
Exactly.
the road. So now, if you've just done nothing else but make this sector, this private car sector, 50 or 60% more efficient,
Hindi pa rin.
wouldn't you in any...
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
That's a big deal, man.
It's a huge deal. I mean, if you were running a business and you found any operation that you could make 50 or 60% more efficient,
That's huge.
anything. If you're in a manufacturing process, sometimes they'll spend billions just to make it 2%
Right.
more efficient, right? We found that we saved 1 minute per day
1 minute per day.
doing this, and therefore they apply this new system. That's what factories do. That's what agencies do. They study and they go.
Efficiency.
There you go.
And I don't know if you noticed, but when there was no Uber, I mean, traffic was worse because people who wouldn't normally bring out their cars were all of a sudden, they were all on the road at the same
Can you
time.
just imagine if trains were more effective?
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, sometimes people come in and they go, if they can't fix it all with one thing, we're not going to fix anything. No, fix the ride sharing.
Here.
You know,
It's a process.
It upsets me when you say, oh, Uber and Grab are solving this problem, whatever. Hindi yan, dapat yung train eh. Yes, it's a separate conversation. I agree with you. It's like
That's also something we got to do.
yeah. So it's also something we gotta do. But this will impact this sector and make it. I'm being very generous or very conservative with 50% because theoretically one Grab or Uber should technically, in theory, service 15 to 20 a day.
Right.
Now that's not 15 to 20 people off the road. That's not 15 to 20 cars off the road at the same time. I mean, I wish it was, but it's not.
Of course.
We know that that's 15 to 20 broken up over the day. But what it will do is it 15 to 20 car parks for you
Right.
per Grab or
They're on the
Uber.
road.
Because now you don't bring your car. Now they don't all travel at the same time. But if that doesn't improve it by at least 3 or 4 times, not
Right.
15,
Right.
come on, let's be.
Let's be honest.
You can't say that that's not going to happen. So you have these cars running around servicing people. Now a lot of people have brought up the thing with me. You mentioned traffic, and
Right.
this is another sticking point with the public. Some people don't understand this. They say if you add these cars to the road, it's going to cause extra traffic. And I myself have noticed, and people send me pictures all the time. Oh, the street now used to be really quiet. Now look at ever since Uber and Grab.
Right.
No. I see where you're going, but there's 2 ways to talk about this. One, you cannot just quote one figure. You cannot just quote a birth rate without a death rate.
Right.
Okay, so when you're talking population, you'll say 1,000 babies were born. That doesn't mean we're now 1,000 more in the country because maybe 800 died in the same day. That's where you get
Doesn't
that.
compute.
Right. So how many did it displace? We haven't really gotten studies there yet.
Right.
That's one. Number 2, we haven't even let that magic happen, as I said in the Senate. And I say that in that phrase because when you talk about Uber and Grab solving the private car crisis or addiction, we haven't seen that happen yet because do you watch Netflix?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have Netflix at home?
Yes.
Spotify, etc. All right.
Yep.
Me too. Right now.
Good stuff.
Before Netflix came in, right? and before Spotify, but let's just use Netflix as an example.
Okay.
I used to have a DVD player,
Right.
and I used to go to Makati Cinema Square and Green Hills, and sometimes buy some movies, right? Only from the legit people.
Sure, of
No,
course.
pirated.
Never pirated.
No.
Or I would go to some of these websites that would do peer-to-peer and torrenting, and these were operated in very gray areas, and
Yes.
shadows of the
Right.
internet, right? Believe, just there's a point coming here somewhere. So now, as I'm gonna watch movies regardless, right? That's in my lifestyle, my pattern, right?
Right.
So whether it's DVD or whatever, I'm gonna watch movies because I enjoy it. That's the way I relax. So now I'm toggling between DVD players and these torrent sites, and these peer-to-peers. And sometimes these torrent sites would be shut down, and then they open up a mirror site. And now, when Netflix came in, once Netflix was established that, hey, this thing is here to stay, and it's not going to be shut down tomorrow because it's not a dodgy, shady site,
Right.
and I can really get my movies from there,
Right.
how much is it? Okay, fine. So I paid it. That's the only time I throw my DVD player out. And I stop going to these dodgy sites.
Because you have an alternative.
Yes, but I'm not. While I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out, I keep my DVD player because if that peer-to-peer site gets shut down, I need to have a backup.
Right.
But Netflix is stable now.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the day I have a ceremonial burning of my DVD player.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Right? I don't need it anymore.
Exactly.
Replace the DVD player with your car, or at least maybe not your only car, but your second car or your third car. You're not going to give that up while this is operating under a cloud of threat. Uber and Grab are right now that peer-to-peer
Exactly.
website, dodgy site that's, they're trying to shut down. That's what I'm saying. So you're not going to see the magic happen until you Netflix it. You like the analogy? Let's Netflix Uber and Grab. Let's make it legit. Let's give an assurance to the public that, you know what, this is here to stay.
It's a viable alternative.
It's a viable alternative. You're not going to be harassed. You're not going to be treated like criminals, whether you drive or ride one. And you're going to be at peace. Boom, you watch the impact that'll have. All of a sudden, people are going to be not buying the second or third cars. They'll probably even get rid of their cars.
Right.
The millennials,
Exactly.
my kids, oh my gosh, my kids are like, this next generation coming up, they're not even interested in cars anymore. For them, cars are like ankle weights or a burden,
Right.
or a 60-pound maleta walking around Makati
Right.
with. What do I do with it?
We're going to park it, you got to maintain it.
I have everything in here, but where am I going to leave it?
Okay.
Can I leave it at the door? Yes, you can, but it's going to cost you $100. Oh man, okay, wait, I'll put it here. Wait, can you just watch it for me? I'm just going to go into the shop. You can't? Okay, that's what
It's like an anvil.
you're
bring
solving
around.
this problem for them. Now, if anyone should be complaining about this, it's the private car, it's the manufacturers. Dealerships.
Right.
Toyota,
Right.
Mitsubishi.
Yeah.
I've spoken to them, and they're not complaining. You
Yeah.
know why? They also understand that while they have a business to run, there's a responsible way to run your business. They know that. But they're not going to be the first ones to take that initiative, and I can't blame them.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
They're not going to be the first ones going to Congress and going, I demand
So
new legislation that says we can't sell cars. Nobody's going to do
So
that.
the guys who are openly after our money are okay with
Are
it.
okay with it.
They are. You know why? Because they're smart enough to know also
Which way the wind's blowing.
which way the wind's blowing. Number two, even if you sold guns or you sold anything that that requires responsible ownership, right? You would know that you sell tobacco, you sell liquor, you sell guns. We're in business; it's legal, but there's a certain responsibility. I can't sell to under 21, under 18. I can't have it sold in Walmart. That's a bad example because they do sell them.
They
in
do,
Walmart.
they do.
Yeah. So,
7-Eleven.
but there's a basic.
F and Walmart.
Now, the Toyotas and the Mitsubishis of this world in the Philippines, who would normally be hit and impacted by this, they're not jumping up and down, throwing a tantrum, because they know that there's markets outside of Metro Manila and Cebu that are untapped.
Exactly.
We have
Yes.
100+ million people in this country. If you can't find a decent business model around that, you shouldn't be in business. But because the concentration is all in Imperial Manila and secondly Imperial Cebu, it's all going there.
It's true.
Well, if that's where the most fertile ground is, and it's easy, it's low-hanging fruit. Let's just keep
Yeah.
selling here. Let's keep selling here. But until you put a stop on that and say, you know what, guys,
There's a whole country out
think
there.
about the condominiums here.
Exactly.
Of course, they're going to keep building condos and malls here because that's where the people are. Nobody wants to be the first to build in rural Bulacan or rural Pampanga because, oh no, there's nobody there. Nobody wants to. But if you said there's now a cap on building malls and building condos in Metro Manila.
They'll find
If you
something
want to
else.
build a mall, it has to be out here. But you know what? We'll incentivize it.
Right.
We'll, now
Find a way to
we'll
do
put a
that.
call center
Yeah.
there.
There
A
you
call
go.
center that houses 100,000 employees.
And they're going to need
There's
infrastructure.
the ecology.
Ah, now we're talking. So they go there and the gold rush happens over there. That's the same thing with ride sharing. You know what, before you impose your restrictions on us, give us this alternative, stabilize it, give us assurance, and then say, guys, if you want to drive your private car, during these times, EDSA's gonna have congestion charges, so will Makati, so will BGC, and you'll be like, oh
Like Singapore.
man. Yeah, you'll be like, oh, come on, that really sucks. Well, you can take a Grab or an Uber or a third
There you
plate
go.
if you want. Oh, well, it's not so bad. You know what? As a matter of fact, I'd probably pay $100 for the congestion charge, $100 for the parking. Yeah, Grab, no,
Exactly.
And then you're now influencing behavior based solely on efficiency,
Right.
not on regulations.
But what you're talking about with regards to that, it sounds like you're arguing for fear of change.
Yeah.
I mean that's what it sounds like. But then again, you have videos like our LTFRB chief, who has video evidence of taxi drivers declining and
Yeah.
declining and declining over and over again, and he sees something. Is he seeing something that we're not seeing?
Does he
Yes,
have Marty?
I think he is.
I don't think that guy commutes on a daily basis.
I'll try to keep this as mature and as calm as possible. But
Sure,
you know
sure.
what? I'm not going to speak out on the transport issues they have in Uganda.
Right.
Because I've never caught anything in Uganda. Well, actually, I did catch something, but the penicillin cleared that up. No, I'm just kidding.
None of my business.
No, but I
Another
will
story.
not. I've never been to Uganda, just in case you're thinking. But that's my point. I don't commute there. I don't understand. So I'm just going to not say anything about it. Now, if you don't actually rely on, phrase this very carefully.
Sure.
How can you have empathy if you can't study empathy from a book.
That's true.
If you're not actually catching cabs, if you are the LTFRB chairman, and as visible as you are, because he became quite visible in the whole thing. So the chance of a taxi cab driver knowing who you are, because he did his own experiment, he jumped in a cab,
Right.
3 cabs, and he said, it was okay naman. Well,
Well, they know who he is.
yeah,
So.
if
Yeah,
I jump
they're-
in 3 Ubers, or 3 Grabs and 3 Ubers, yeah, chances are they might know who I am too. So I might get slightly better treatment than somebody
It's
else.
not empirical data.
Yeah.
Like, fair
So what's he saying? Just listen to the people. That's all I can say. You know what? If you don't personally catch cabs every day, listen to the people who do. They have no reason to make this up. None.
Right.
There's no incentive to make this up.
That
So
leads me to, are you still doing your immersion, like on a daily or weekly basis? Like
I
cabs,
do it
buses,
randomly, without cameras, of course, because
Right. Defeats the purpose.
I just do it so I understand. I have a
Again, your take on empathy.
because you can't learn empathy from a book.
Exactly.
Now I have this wonderful van that I have now that you saw downstairs. It's
Can
got a
you
van.
tell us about your conducting business in the van
Yeah.
as well later?
So you brought up a good thing when you saw me pull up here and I had a meeting in my bank, because that's how I make the most of traffic. I try to work with if you were in a cold country, you would gear up for it. You get a house with insulation,
It's
central
true.
heating, a jacket.
Yep.
You don't go out there and go, oh my God, it's so cold in my shorts and
In my shorts
sandals.
and
Right, right.
You got to prepare for it. You got to work with the environment. In Manila, the environment is traffic. So I have a van, and I have a certain amount of meetings per week, whatever. I prioritize those meetings. Now, if the meeting is something that I could get away with by saying, like you're the one who sets it up with me, and you're trying to sell me something, so you're the one who wants my time.
Right.
I'll say, fine, you know what? Sure, you can meet me at this time, but you make that meeting happen for my commute to here to there. How important is it to you? I mean,
Go
if
to
you're
me.
selling,
If
if
you-
you're selling
if you need
something
it,
to
yeah.
me, then you might say, oh yeah, fine. Now, that's not dead time anymore. I haven't met you
It's
in
productive.
I haven't parked and
Right,
met you somewhere.
right.
You come with me from down EDSA, and that 1 hour
To where
trip.
you need to go.
And that's what I did on the way here. I met with 2 people I'd never met before. They dropped me, I let them ride in my van, they parked over somewhere in Makati, we drove over here, and then,
This system has worked for you for years now?
Not years naman. I've started doing this more when I got the van because it's easy to meet. Now,
Who knows what goes on inside that van?
yeah, it's got a bed in there. It's got
It's got
yeah, oh my god, karaoke system. It's got
Again, none of
TV.
my business. But
Yeah, it's got like Victoria Court lights in it.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Now,
Can we
I
get footage
also
of that
limit
van?
my use of that van
Okay.
because I could get very comfortable in that van,
Oh yeah.
and I don't want to. And I have this limit, and my wife makes sure that she caps this limit of 3 times a week in that van because I don't want to lose empathy. Once you put the curtains down,
Right, you get used to it.
you get used to it, and then you stop understanding what
You're in a
people go
bubble
through.
now.
You're in a bubble. This is why I would love to see our politicians get out of their bubble. Once again, I'm not trying to turn this into a
Us against them.
yeah, us against them.
Yeah.
But really, there's only one way to learn empathy, and that's to actually go through it.
Oh man.
Get yourself out of the bubble. I drive myself. I ride in the back of a car only because it's the most productive way to spend time.
Right.
It's counterproductive for me to just say, oh, I'm going to drive myself, whatever. But then I can't text, I can't use follow-up emails, I can't make those phone calls, whatever.
Right.
I split it up. So I drive myself, I ride, and then I also take the van as well, 2 or 3 days a week. And then especially if I go out of town, I try to use it for it's my mobile resting area when we're shooting and stuff.
Fair enough.
But if I stuck to one, I wouldn't be able to. And then I commute. Now I commute randomly. If I'll be very honest about it. It's not as much as I'd like to. 2 times a month would be. My target is once a week, but sometimes it's more like 2 times a month. But this doesn't count when I go out with cameras because I don't count that as commuting. You're not treated the same way. Even if they just see 2 or 3 cameramen, it's different. Yeah, so the other day it was funny because I didn't even plan to do this, right? But I was on my way to work and I had to be on live at 11 a.m. and Waze was telling me, I just kept climbing up. Your ETA just kept moving past 11 and I thought, I'm never gonna make this. So I jumped out in the middle of EDSA and I jumped onto an MRT and I got there in time. Actually earlier.
Okay.
I got there like 20 minutes early before I was supposed to be there.
Nice.
And it's nice. It goes to show, once again, it's a menu of options. The MRT at a certain time of the day, no way.
No way.
Yes.
You're better off in your car because it'll take an hour and a half to get to the platform.
If it's working.
If it's working. So it's not saying, oh, the MRT is better than the car. No, it was better at that particular time. I jumped out. But if I don't have these options, that's
It's
it.
true, and a lot of people don't have those options, which is crazy. You think of places like Singapore or even Hong Kong, where if people were given a choice, they wouldn't even have a car because you have to figure out where to put it and all those things. And having a car ultimately is just a status symbol for these people.
And have you noticed, like in places like Singapore, very good example. I know our politicians love to compare us there, but they cherry pick what they compare. Oh, you see in Singapore? Yeah, but they don't.
Yeah, but their stuff works. So.
Yeah,
Their stuff
exactly.
works, man. Everything
That's-
works.
It works. So the mindset in Singapore is, we're going to give you all of this, right? We're going to give you the best ride-sharing model. They have one of the best ride-sharing laws now
Right.
around. We're going to give you the best mass transit we can give you. The best this, the best that, the best this. If you still want to ride your private car, you spoiled son of
Right,
a...
they'll make it difficult.
Yeah, then you pay.
Right, you have to get the
Yeah,
COE.
Yeah, you have, but it's like you really want... You're
You
being
want
a
a
little
car.
brat now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's just be perfectly honest about it.
Because you still want a car.
But you know what? It's still we're not going to deny you that because there's an industry built around selling cars and all that. So you know what? We're not going to say it's a bad thing, just pay for it.
Right.
And that's how we want to get it here. We want to create that same mindset. When people say, shouldn't we raise the taxes? Shouldn't we raise? No. You know what? If anything, I always say lower the taxes of cars. What? That's crazy. We have too many as it is. It doesn't matter how many we have. This supplies an industry. This makes an industry go around. One of our biggest industries in this country is the auto industry. It supports how many thousands and millions or hundreds of thousands of families, like people.
Yes.
You restrict the usage, not the ownership.
Not the ownership.
Buy as many cars as you want. You want to buy 20, 30, 50 cars. Good for you if you can afford them. Thank you. We salute you. You're supporting local industry now, especially if it's the ones assembled and made here.
Right.
We salute you, sir. Now I want to drive my 50 cars. Well, no. Vamos up on that. What? Why? Oh, well. Okay. Now we need to talk about this. You can own it. but there's responsible usage of it. Now, plan your trips accordingly. When you have a congestion charge, it's the fairest thing because you decide. When you have a coding system, that's not fair because
Of course.
one,
It's still game that.
yeah, it infringes on your basic rights of, wait, I bought this and now you're
I
telling
can't
me
use
I
it.
can't
Pwede-
bawal.
Yeah, bawal.
I'm paying 7 days registration, you're telling me now I can use it 6 days? Nobody's refunded your 1 day a week registration, right? That's almost 20%, what's 15% of the week is, did they reduce it? No, they didn't. So, that's one thing. Another problem, and it's bawal. Bawal meaning bawal.
Yes.
Not
Just
like,
don't-
you know what? Would you like to go to Boracay in Holy Week? You may have to pay twice the amount for it.
Right.
At least that's an option, you know what? Well, it's my only time off, so really, yeah, I'll pay it.
Yeah.
Or you know what? I'm gonna save it. I'll go the week after. Prices are down 50%. Yeah, but it's not there. It doesn't matter. It's my choice.
Right.
I'll go there because I don't want to spend. That's what we're telling. We're giving people choices. We have a finite amount of space on the roads. It's a very finite resource. So it's not as if we can just keep building and building more roads. That is, by the way, not the answer. It's actually part of the problem. If you double the road infrastructure in Metro Manila, you are not going to have the traffic. You will probably double the traffic. The more you create,
It's true.
all you're telling people is you build another road, you're attracting more cars.
Right.
And at some point, they've got to converge at the same place. The worst thing you can imagine is building more roads. Now, I'm not saying that we have to fix some of our roads that are broken, but that is not the ultimate answer.
Absolutely.
The ultimate answer is basically more people in less cars, which ride sharing is a great model for that. I just said not less cars, less vehicles, so that we include trains, buses, and other mass transits. And then decentralization should be at the heart of every discussion.
Okay.
You cannot have any of this discussion without putting decentralization right there at the heart of it.
I was going to ask. There are those, even within the halls of government, who say that these problems, these things that you're saying, these are privileged people's problems. These are rich people's problems. I mean, most
First world problems.
most people don't have a car. So what about them? They don't care about coding, that sort of thing.
Well, that's that's quite myopic in when you look at it like that, because even the people in public transport will get affected by private car usage, because private car usage, as much as I'm a private car owner, and I prefer to travel in a private car, is the number one source of congestion, simply because of the footprint that you
Yes.
have
Yes.
versus the amount of people that you move in. So it affects everyone, because you're on a bus and you're stuck behind 1,000 cars.
Right.
So yeah, and coding is also not just not the answer. It creates bigger problems, because not just have we, when you're told that you can't use your car 1 day a week, and you don't give a viable, safe alternative, right? The only reason people are buying private cars is because they don't feel safe anywhere else. It's now survival for them. So if you tell me that I can't use my private car for 1 day a week, I will just buy another car. I will find a way
Right.
to buy another car. I will just, because there is no option to commute or whatever. This is why when Uber and Grab came in, it became, there
What a
is a
concept.
private car alternative.
Yes, there's an option now.
Okay, so now that's why I would do that. So coding, all it does for me is just, I like to look at it this way. If you were living in a subdivision, and I know a lot of countries have water rationing, so you live in this subdivision or this county, and the government or whoever the authorities say, you know what, we have a water shortage, and your 100-gallon tank that you use in your house, sadly, we're gonna have to ration that down to 80 gallons, because otherwise we won't have enough for everyone. Now you're like, okay, I get it. Now you were okay with 100 gallons. You got by every week.
Right.
But at 80, you're not. You know what? People are complaining. People whatever. It's just not enough. Kulang. So nobody said that I can't buy a second tank and fill that to 80 gallons, because that's the restriction. 80. You're taking away. If you work a working week of 5 days a week,
Yes.
1 day a week is 20%. So that's what you've done. No, but because you haven't placed a restriction on getting another car or another water tank, now I'm 160 gallons. I was okay on 100, But because of the problem, dropping down to, you've now put me here, I put another thing, now I have 160.
And okay na.
And this is what happens with coding, because I brought in another car, in an attempt to take one car off the road for 1 day a week, I've added 2 cars 6 days a week. There's no...
It doesn't add up.
That doesn't add up. You've created a bigger problem down the road, and we've seen it, because now we
Yes.
just can't move. By the way, the auto industry,
Absolutely.
thank you for your support.
All right.
We love you for that. You know, it's kept me in business. You know, I have work around cars and stuff, but it's not the most responsible way to look at it. So I see coding as a very nice solution for short term. If you are building MRT or you're building a certain thing in this area, guys, we need to reduce for a little while. This will be in effect for 1 year, but don't buy another car. In fact, you can start penalizing the second and third and fourth cars in taxation, so long as you ensure their ride sharing is intact.
Right. So, I need to ask, are there examples of countries that have turned it around? Have they been as bad as we are and they were able to make something of it?
There have been countries that are worse.
Uber Meta as well.
There have been countries that have been worse than us in every way and have been better, like Bogota. I heard, I've got some Colombian friends who live there and lived here. So, you know, they really experienced both sides. And they were saying, it's a total mess. It was a total mess in Bogota. And the mayor there came out, and he was one of the most progressive mayors. He's hailed worldwide as being this godlike for a transport official, because he decided to challenge the cultural, the exactly, the resistance, the cultural resistance to all this. He declared, he made biking, he incentivized bikings, he put the Transmilenio, which is that bus rapid transit system. I think he also put the coding system as well while he was doing all this. He created all these reforms and now has become the model city. And he goes around the world talking about this. Curitiba in Brazil had the same issues. They're now model cities. So they have turned it around because nobody wants change, really. I mean, or they want change, but they're not willing to change. So it really takes a forward thinker to say, no, this is the better way forward. There's going to be some birthing pains. Unfortunately, some people will be impacted by this, but this is just the way of the world.
Sounds the same with the disruptive technologies.
Everything, it's evolution. I mean, you're going to displace something, but where are we going? Where are we going as a race, as a city, as a country? Do we want to go forward? Do we want to just stay in this little comfort zone and then just the whole world leaves us behind?
And everything in Southeast Asia has been experiencing those growing pains.
That's
Thailand,
why.
India with Uber.
That's why it's frustrating, because I'm saying we're not stepping out into the abyss.
But that's the thing.
Same thing.
We're not worried that we know
Same thing
that.
with our neighbors.
Yes, we can just follow what happened there. What were the things that you learned? Like this, and this, and the taxis were affected this way, but they evolved this way. So and so was affected this way, but they evolved this way. Okay, so now we actually have an advantage because we can see what they learned from there.
Yes, we can pick and choose what will work for us.
Exactly. You know what? That's we're and there's not much, there's not much here that's localized in terms of, this is uniquely Filipino. No.
Those scenarios have played out elsewhere.
Exactly.
Just as a way to, because we're getting close to that time, sir, wrapping up. How has this experience changed your life? Because now there are memes about you, sir, and there's a long Reddit thread about you.
Right.
You are #Tito Goals, stuff like that. How have you all taken it in stride?
Gosh,
what is your take on it? Are you loving it?
I thought we were keeping this professional, but okay.
It's all good. It's all good.
All
It's
right.
part and parcel of it.
You're
So far
from all
it's been great.
experience.
You know what? It's you can't really control.
Your kids look at you differently. Okay pala si dad.
They tease me about it a lot. I mean, the Tito Gold thing became quite funny. I embrace it because there's nothing more you can do anyways. So I'm glad that it's coming from a good place, and that part really means a lot to me, because
and you can really leverage.
You can leverage it. So I'm not going to lie and say that I'm uncomfortable with the attention, because I see the attention being a currency to a greater thing, which is to try to use that attention or celebrity or whatever you term it as to get somewhere else, which is to achieve these things that we're all trying to achieve. So in that way, I embrace it. I'm grateful for it, because now it amplifies the voice. and we have a better chance of being heard. And I don't do this alone. I can't do this alone. This is a community effort. And this is why when people it's flattering, but when they say, why don't you run for politics? Why don't you go into LTFRB, LTO,
How do you answer
senator,
them?
congressman? I would like to answer it by saying, I'm terribly flattered, thank you. But I would do so, and I would consider it if I believed that was a platform or a more effective platform for getting things done. But I don't in my heart believe that. I know that there are very good people in politics. There are some. I know it's hard to believe, but there are some. But the system, I don't work well with that system. I just have to be honest with myself that I have a certain skill set, and that skill set doesn't lend itself well to politics. And it's not as if we're powerless here. We've done so much together as a community, and we've proven that as private citizens on a social media platform alone, we've been able to not just think of laws, but have them passed. We've done more together as a community than many politicians have. These are people telling me this, and I've seen it. There are politicians who spent 6 years in Senate and Congress and not passed a single law. We've done more than that. We've passed more than one law. We've created more than one law. We've fundraised, we've crowdsourced, we've done so much. So why would we want to give that up?
It's not just denting politics, it's actually influencing politics.
Exactly. So you also need hand in hand. You need media and you need politics. I don't think one is less powerful than the other, because media is supposed to shine a light on politics and say, what are you doing?
Absolutely.
Are you really taking care of our better interests? So if the goal was, thank you, I feel terribly flattered when you say you trust my voice and my sincerity, etc. So wouldn't you need that here too? Wouldn't you need this in media to say you need somebody there doing that? So we've got this, let's keep this. We got a good thing going on. If you do convince me later on that there's a more effective vehicle or a more efficient machinery behind a Senate seat or a Congress seat or an LTO seat, then fine, I'd go there. But right now, I think we're doing a pretty solid job here as it is, as private individuals coming together, having our voices heard, and then putting the pressure on people who can make that happen.
That's one thing that critics can't argue with. I mean, especially your critics.
I don't think they can, because they can't argue because it's genuine. It's really coming from a genuine place.
It's effective.
It's effective, and they know it's true. They really know it's true, and this goes back to the thing, when you know it's true, it's very difficult to argue. You can get trolls and haters and stuff trying to derail you, but I'm grateful that the trolls and haters are very minimal, actually, but they're there. But they're there, and I'm grateful for them too. I really do want to say a shout out and thank you to the haters and the trolls, because you know what they do? They remind you that you're on the right track.
Absolutely.
Because by very nature, if you think about
You will
a
make
hater,
enemies.
a hater will never ever correct you when you're right.
When you're right.
Right? Think about it.
Right.
They want to see you fail.
They do.
So if they are noisy about it, it means you're on the right track. Because if you're doing something wrong, they're never going to correct you.
Exactly.
They'll be laughing in the shadows going,
Told you so.
watch him fall on his face.
Right.
But when they're the first ones going, oh, he's been paid, he's been this, he's
You
been
know
that.
you're doing something right.
Thank you very much. At least you're listening. Thank you. At least I was worried there nobody was listening, but apparently, you hang on every word. So that's good. I'm grateful for that.
And I think if you were to step into public office, I mean, that would severely limit the kinds of things that you could say, or even the way you say them.
You know what it would also do? And my brother told me this and stuck. He said, politics by its very nature is divisive.
Right.
So I would already divide the audience that I have.
Yes.
Right.
Why would I want to do that?
Exactly. Ay, tumakbo pala siya.
Yes, kasi may kulay na eh.
Oh.
Yes.
So all of a sudden,
It's
you've got
political.
these people that support you, and then you go there and like,
That was his
Pala
motivation.
siya,
Isn't that
Yeah.
ironic that public office is no longer about the greater good?
no, it's not,
No,
because by parties alone and all that, it's divisive. So in my page, I'm so strict about non-political commentary. Now, yes, I do talk about the LTFRB, the LTO, but these are administrative things. These are not
You need to
political.
talk about them.
I have to. I can't dance around the elephant in the room. I'm sorry, but I don't agree with this policy of yours. It doesn't mean I don't agree with this one, like modernization. I brought that up earlier in the podcast. I support it, and that's an LTFRB initiative. So I'll be the first to tip my hat. You guys, good job. But in this, no, not a good job.
Right.
So let's argue about this. I'll support you here. I won't support you there. And yes, the voice is unencumbered, and that's what makes it very important. That's what makes it put value into it. It's unencumbered. Once you go into politics, at least I can speak for myself. I'm not judging those people who are already in there, but I get there, and all of a sudden that voice is encumbered.
Yes.
Who put me in there? Now, unless it's 100% crowdsourced, but even then.
Last questions from you, sir?
Well, just for
I was
me,
just getting started.
just for me, what's the most important thing that you want people to take away from this, your
whole
cause,
experience,
your
yeah.
crusade, whatever you want to call it? What do you want people to take away from this?
We can make a difference. Together, we can make a difference. I know that sounds like a Hallmark greeting card or something.
That was an awesome catchphrase as well, and the Senate. Filipinos were driving.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
It gave some, we all love taglines. It's not just a Filipino thing. We all love taglines, and that just came out. It's not that I haven't used it before, but it just slipped out in that thing, and it worked wonders. But yes, take away, together we can make a difference. Don't ever think that you can't and your voice doesn't count, because it does. Not just in this transport sector, but I also do what I can to raise money for causes and charities and stuff, because
Tell us about that.
I feel that that's my only way of really giving back. I mean, like, obviously the transport sector is my job. I get paid for that already. I'm very lucky that I have a good network behind me. They pay me a salary to do that. I get into the public eye. That gives me opportunities, endorsements. I'm making a comfortable living out of it. So that's already paid for, part and parcel, and I'm having the time of my life doing it.
Right.
So that's why I feel the need to give back. And I don't give money to charity. I have a policy against that. It's just my personal thing. I feel if I'm going to give to charity, when I do give to charity, I give a piece of myself. Because I really want to make sure, number one, they get the most out of it. It's my commitment, so I only dedicate maybe 10 or 15 or 20%, depending, because there's how long's a piece of string, again. But I will make it a point to do at least 1 or 2 major projects a year, and that's my commitment. I won't go into the church and put 10%. That's not my thing.
That's not your
Not judging you if you do that. They also
It's
need.
not for you.
Just not for me. Me, it's 10% or 15 or 20% of my time and my skills. So I use that back to on the page. Right now we're doing a PWD taxi project where I'm supporting this group, Circle of Friends Foundation, that this wonderful lady, she's been doing this on her own for like 14 years, funding it and giving PWDs basically transport. And she has like this L300 that she uses, and she's got 3 of them. We're trying to give her the 4th one.
Nice.
And then we're trying to develop it, more importantly, a prototype that that Photon is going to help us with. We're trying to bring the costs down so that this prototype ends up becoming a viable business decision for TNVS people. If Photon can build this down to 1 million pesos
From Malaysia.
no, the Photon has a factory here.
There's a factory
actually,
here?
which is why we're tapping for one. They're the most affordable one. So it looks like a high ace. It's got the high roof and all that. It's got the space, everything, but it's 1,020,000 stripped out. If they can build this down to 1 million, which
Okay.
means they won't have any profit margin, but you know what? I've tried to talk Photon into it, and I hope this makes the podcast because it's very important. If Photon are willing to forego this profit margin just for this project,
Yes.
and commit, let's say, 1 million pesos all in for this Photon van that has 6 seats for normal people, and then the back is wheelchair accessible. Think about it from a TNVS point of view. If you had the choice, if you wanted to get into a TNVS and you wanted to drive people around, make some money out of Grab and Uber,
Right.
and maybe a third player, if I told you you can buy an Innova for 1.1, 1.2 and Uber that around, or you can buy 1 million, you can buy a van that sits 6 people, because that's the
Right.
limit. You can't take 7 apparently under the LTFRB regulation, so you can't really own a van
On a van.
because that falls in a different category. But if we can get that, and you had 6 people in the van, but it was wheelchair accessible,
Yes.
your TNVS, your income is still the same, but now you have the added versatility of a wheelchair accessible vehicle that you can pick up PWDs with.
Right.
So basically, this is no longer a charitable thing. It is just, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're offering a specialized service.
Yeah.
Where can they, or do you have upcoming seminars, talks? Where can they find you?
Facebook is probably the best way only because I'm always there, and then anything that happens, if I do have conferences, stuff, it will be announced
Posted
there.
there.
Okay.
So that's like my hub. I don't really do Twitter. I don't really do Instagram. I do have them, but I don't work them. I don't really. Facebook is the one platform I understand how it works, and I really do work it. I'm there
24/7.
a bit more than my wife is comfortable with, but you know what? It gets things done. So why not?
People don't even text anymore.
And why should they?
Exactly.
I mean, there you go. The telcos were fighting.
Telcos are fighting.
They were fighting Skype and Viber. And
That's a whole nother,
But
you know what?
podcast. I
Episode
think.
2.
You know what they did? They eventually
They
just
embraced
said-
them.
They embraced them and they said, "Hey, you want to buy data from us?"
No.
Exactly.
Smart, right? Ah, no pun intended.
Yeah, yeah.
Smart look, whatever, right? But I'm
Absolutely.
just saying, they
Exactly.
embraced it and they went the other way. Now, if taxi operators wanted to do the same thing and perhaps go into the ride-sharing system or just work with it, don't work against it.
Thank you so much.
That's
Thank
it.
you,
Ah,
yeah.
So bitin.
I know. Let's have it in again.
Oh, we can totally do a follow-up episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
James.
much. We are definitely going to talk again.
All right.